My name's Hailey, I'm 23 years old, and I don't think I'll ever forget the way my mom looked at me that morning. There was no anger, no heated outburst, just cold disappointment in her eyes, like I was some burden she couldn't wait to get rid of. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the smell of burnt toast and cheap coffee lingering in the air. I hadn't even touched my plate yet when she set down her mug and said, as if it were the most casual thing in the world, "You're nothing but a failure, Hailey. We regret having you." I froze. My fork slipped out of my hand and clattered against the plate. My brother, Jeremy, leaned back in his chair and laughed, nodding along like she had just told the funniest joke. "She's right," he added, smirking at me. "Honestly, you're useless." I felt my throat tighten. Every fiber in me wanted to scream, to defend myself, to throw all their cruelty back in their faces. But instead, I forced myself to sit still, biting down hard on the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of watching me break. As soon as I could, I excused myself quietly and walked upstairs to my room. The second I shut the door behind me, the tears came. I pressed a pillow over my face to muffle the sobs. My chest hurt, but underneath all the pain, something else had begun to stir, something sharper. That night, I pulled out my old duffel bag and started packing. A few clothes, the little money I had hidden away, my journal, and the necklace my grandmother gave me before she passed. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't leave a note. When the house grew quiet, I slipped out the front door without a word. The next morning, as I sat on a bus headed toward a city I'd never been to, my phone buzzed non-stop in my pocket. 29 missed calls. All from Mom. Rent was due. And I was gone. The bus rattled along the highway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and I kept my gaze fixed on the darkened landscape outside. Streetlights blurred into long streaks of gold against the window, my reflection staring back at me, pale, red-eyed, and exhausted. For the first time in my life, I was free. And for the first time in my life, I was completely on my own. I got off in Columbus, Ohio. Not because I had family there, not because I knew anyone, just because it was far enough from home to feel like a different world, but close enough that I could afford the ticket. The station smelled like grease and old coffee. People shuffled past me, eyes glazed, dragging suitcases and murmuring into phones. I tightened my grip on my duffel bag and reminded myself, this is it. You don't go back. I walked aimlessly at first, through streets I'd never seen before, letting the city swallow me whole. My money wouldn't last long, so I needed a plan. A job. A place to crash. I thought about the 29 missed calls from Mom, the texts that had started popping up. "You're going to regret this. Don't expect us to take you back. Rent's due. Where the hell are you?" I laughed bitterly. For years, they treated me like I was disposable. Now suddenly, my absence mattered. Not because they missed me, but because they needed my paycheck to cover their bills. That realization hardened something in me. By evening, I found a rundown motel with a flickering neon sign. $35 a night, cash only. I handed over the money with shaking hands, knowing it cut into what little I had left. Inside, the room smelled of mildew, the wallpaper peeling in strips. But it had a lock on the door, and for now, that was enough. Lying on the lumpy mattress, staring up at the ceiling, I whispered to myself, they wanted me gone. Well, they got it. But they're not going to get away with it. I didn't know how yet. But I knew one thing for certain, my family would regret the way they treated me. The first morning in Columbus hit me harder than I expected. The hum of traffic outside the motel window, the sound of a neighbor's TV blasting through thin walls, it all felt foreign. I lay there for a while, staring at the water-stained ceiling, the weight of reality pressing in. I had maybe $200 left in my pocket. No job. No real plan. But I wasn't going back. I showered in lukewarm water, tied my damp hair into a bun, and pulled on my cleanest jeans and a hoodie. My sneakers were worn down, but they'd have to do. I packed my things back into the duffel bag, I didn't trust leaving anything in the motel, and headed out. Downtown Columbus wasn't glamorous, but it had a pulse, and that gave me hope. I walked street after street, asking about jobs. Coffee shops, diners, gas stations. Some managers gave me pitying looks, others barely glanced up from their phones. By late afternoon, my feet ached and my stomach growled. I ended up at a little corner diner called Millie's Place, a family-owned joint with neon signs in the window. The woman behind the counter was in her 50s, gray streaks in her bun, wiping down menus. I asked, almost too softly, "Are you hiring?" She looked me over, eyes sharp but not unkind. "You ever waitressed before?" I lied. "Yes." Her lips twitched, like she knew I wasn't telling the whole truth, but she sighed and handed me an apron. "Start with tables 6 through 10. Tips are yours. Don't screw it up." That night, I stumbled back to the motel with aching legs but a pocket full of crumpled bills and coins. Not much, but it felt like freedom. I checked my phone again. 63 missed calls now. Dozens of texts. Mom's tone had shifted, less rage, more desperation. "Hailey, we need the money. Don't do this to us." Jeremy's furious. "We can't cover rent." I read every word with a slow, burning satisfaction. For once, they were the ones scrambling. Not me. As I counted the tips on the bed, an idea began to take shape. Maybe I wasn't just going to survive out here. Maybe I was going to make sure they felt every ounce of the pain they put me through. And for the first time, the thought of revenge didn't just scare me, it fueled me. By the end of my first week at Millie's Place, I was no longer the girl who had slipped out of her parents' house in the middle of the night. I was still broke, still scared, but something inside me had shifted. For the first time in years, I was standing on my own 2 feet. Millie, the owner, was tough but fair. She expected me to keep up, move fast, smile at customers even when my body ached. I made mistakes, spilled coffee, mixed up orders, but instead of tearing me down, she corrected me. Firm, but never cruel. That alone felt like a shock to my system. It wasn't long before I made my first friend in Columbus. Her name was Tasha, another waitress about my age. She had curly hair, sharp eyeliner, and the kind of confidence I wished I had. During slow shifts, she'd lean against the counter, sipping Sprite out of a paper cup, and talk about everything from bad dates to dreams of leaving Ohio. One night, when the diner was nearly empty, she asked, "So what's your story, Hailey? You ran from something, didn't you?" Her question made my stomach twist. For a second, I thought about lying, giving her some watered-down version. But instead, I told her the truth. Not all of it, but enough, the cruel words, the way my brother laughed at me, the night I left. Tasha didn't pity me. She just nodded. "Good. Screw them. You're better off without people who treat you like that." Her words stuck with me. When I got back to the motel, I scrolled through the endless stream of missed calls and texts again. Mom and Jeremy's panic was only getting worse. They weren't just worried about rent anymore, they were begging. "You don't understand, Hailey. We need you. Please, come back. We'll talk. We're screwed without you." For years, I had been their punching bag. Their scapegoat. Their paycheck. Now, for the first time, they were powerless without me. And that's when the thought crystallized. I didn't just want to watch them struggle. I wanted to take back control of everything they'd stolen from me, my dignity, my peace, my years. If I played it right, I could do more than survive here. I could make them regret every single word they ever said to me. The idea of revenge started as a flicker, something I whispered to myself at night in the motel, a way to keep the anger from eating me alive. But over the next few weeks, it became sharper, more real. I kept working at Millie's Place, saving every tip I could. The motel wasn't cheap, but I managed. The more stability I gained, the clearer my head became. And with that clarity, I started piecing together a plan. It wasn't about storming back into that house, screaming at them, demanding apologies. No. That would give them too much power. I wanted something slower. Smarter. A way to turn the tables completely. Step 1. Information. I still had access to the family's online accounts, banking, utilities, even Mom's email. She never changed her passwords, always using the same combination of birthdays and pet names. Late at night, with the motel's weak Wi-Fi, I logged in. What I found didn't surprise me, but it made me smile. They were broke. Without my paycheck, they were barely treading water. Past due notices, overdraft fees, warnings about eviction. Jeremy had maxed out 2 credit cards, and Mom was behind on the car payment. Step 2. Distance. I changed my number. But before I did, I sent one last text to Mom. Don't worry. You'll hear from me when the time's right. Then I hit block. Step 3. Allies. Tasha turned out to be more than just a work friend. She had been through her own kind of hell with an ex who tried to bleed her dry. She understood anger. She understood patience. One night after closing, over greasy fries, I told her I wasn't just running away anymore, I was planning to take back what was mine. Instead of judging me, she grinned. Good. Let's make a list. And we did. We sat in that empty diner booth with a pen and napkin, scribbling down ideas, expose Jeremy's scams, hit Mom where it hurt financially, find a way to show the world who they really were. For the first time, revenge didn't feel like some vague dream. It felt possible. And it was only the beginning. The first move had to be small, something that wouldn't point directly back to me, but enough to shake them. I wanted them nervous. Off balance. I started with Jeremy. He'd always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. But I knew the truth, he was reckless, lazy, and entitled. He lived off my paycheck as much as they did, blowing his own money on booze, video games, and things he couldn't afford. Through Mom's email, I found his bank statements. Credit cards maxed, overdraft fees piling up. He had been applying for payday loans too, using Mom as a cosigner. That gave me an idea. Using his personal info, which I knew by heart from years of living in that house, I created a fake Craigslist ad. Xbox Series X for sale, $200 OBO, cash only. I attached Jeremy's phone number. Within an hour, his phone blew up with dozens of texts and calls. People asking when they could come pick it up, if the console was still available, if he'd take $150 instead. I imagined him sitting in his room, confused at first, then furious as the flood of messages kept coming. The next day, I logged into Mom's account again. There it was, an angry email Jeremy had sent her at 3 a.m. Someone put my number on Craigslist. I swear, people won't stop calling me. This is harassment. I can't deal with this crap right now, Mom. Why isn't Hailey here helping us? Reading that made me laugh out loud in my motel room. For once, Jeremy wasn't laughing at me. He was the joke. But that was just the warm-up. The real revenge would come later. That night at the diner, I told Tasha what I'd done. She nearly choked on her soda. You're evil, she said, grinning. I like it. What's next? I leaned back, the weight of years of pain feeling just a little lighter. Next, I said, we make sure Mom finally knows what it feels like to lose everything she depends on. And that's when the real plan began to take shape. If Jeremy was the warm-up, Mom was the main event. She had always been the sharpest blade in the house, cutting me down with words so cruel they stuck in my bones for years. Jeremy was just her shadow, repeating her poison. But she was the source. I wanted her to feel powerless. Like she had no control left, not over me, not over Jeremy, not even over her own life. The opportunity came quicker than I expected. Through her email, I noticed she had signed up for several side hustle programs, surveys, coupon clipping, even some shady work-from-home schemes. It was obvious she was desperate for money. Desperate enough to click on anything that promised quick cash. So, I made something for her to click. With Tasha's help, I created a fake job listing: administrative assistant, work from home, $22 per hour. We used a burner email and phone number. I wrote the description myself, mimicking the kind of language I knew would hook her: flexible hours, no experience necessary, weekly pay. We posted it on a job site she'd used before. It didn't take long. That same evening, I logged into the burner email and saw her name pop up. She had applied with her full resume attached, her address, her work history, even the list of references she'd been using. She was so eager she didn't even notice the details didn't add up. I stared at the screen, a bitter satisfaction rising in my chest. For years, she told me I was worthless. Now here she was, begging for a fake job just to stay afloat. I didn't reply to her. Not yet. I wanted her to stew in that silence, refreshing her inbox, hoping for a lifeline that wasn't coming. Later, I forwarded the resume, along with screenshots of some of her nastiest Facebook posts, anonymously to a few local job boards. Nothing cruel, just enough to make her look unreliable. Employers talk. Reputation spread. The next morning, while I poured coffee at Millie's, I checked her messages again. She had sent 5 follow-up emails to the fake job listing. Just checking if you received my application. I'm very eager to start right away. Please let me know. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Tasha leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "You're turning into a mastermind." I smirked. She made me this way. And for the first time, I realized just how far I was willing to go. The little tricks, the fake ad, the phony job posting, had been satisfying, but I knew they weren't enough. If I wanted them to feel what I felt all those years, I had to hit harder. Not just annoy them. Not just embarrass them. I had to take away their sense of safety. And the timing was perfect. Through Mom's email, I saw the landlord had sent her a final notice. Rent was overdue by 3 weeks. One more missed payment, and they'd be facing eviction. Normally, that would have terrified me too. But this time, I smiled. I decided to speed things up. The landlord's contact info was right there in her inbox. So, I created another burner email and pretended to be Hailey reaching out to him. I wrote, "This is Hailey. I just wanted you to know that my mother and brother are not planning to pay rent this month. They've been spending money on other things and lying to you. You should take action now before it's too late." I didn't sign my real name. Just left it at that. Enough to sow suspicion, enough to make him pressure them harder. 2 days later, Mom's inbox lit up with furious messages from the landlord. "If you don't pay this week, I'll be forced to start eviction paperwork. No more excuses. I expect full payment." I imagined the panic in that house. The yelling. The blame shifting. Jeremy cursing at Mom. Mom screaming back. Both of them wishing I was there to bail them out. Meanwhile, I was stacking tips at Millie's, saving every dollar, building a life without them. But revenge wasn't just about money. It was about stripping away the illusion they had any power left over me. So, I took the next step. I started gathering receipts, screenshots of Jeremy's online gambling accounts, screenshots of Mom's nasty texts to me, even her Facebook rants where she bragged about how useless Hailey is. Piece by piece, I was collecting the kind of evidence that could ruin reputations, not just within our family but outside of it too. I wasn't ready to use them yet. No, timing was everything. Tasha looked at the growing folder on my laptop one night and said, "You're playing chess, girl. They don't even realize they're already losing." And she was right. For the first time in my life, I was the one pulling the strings. By the time September rolled around, I had been in Columbus for nearly 3 months. My savings were slowly growing, I'd found a rhythm at the diner, and I no longer jumped every time my phone buzzed. My life was mine now. But my family? They were unraveling. The eviction threats had grown louder. Jeremy's credit cards were locked. Mom's job search was going nowhere. And every time I checked her inbox, I saw the same desperation bleeding through: unanswered applications, debt collectors calling, overdue notices piling up. I knew the time was coming to take the next step. Not just to watch them struggle privately, but to strip away the mask they wore in public. Step 1 was Jeremy. He had always carried himself like some kind of king, bragging online about his business ventures, posting pictures with cars that weren't even his. I knew the truth: he was addicted to gambling, burning through cash he didn't have. So I set up a simple plan. Using the screenshots I'd saved of his betting accounts, I created an anonymous Facebook page. The profile picture was a blurry photo of poker chips, and the page name was Jeremy the Gambler. I uploaded the screenshots, his username, his losses, his late-night posts begging bookies for extensions. I shared the page in a few local community groups, the same ones where he liked to brag. Within hours, people were commenting. Wait, is this the same Jeremy who was bragging about buying a new truck? Looks like someone's living a lie. Damn, dude owes thousands. What a mess. By morning, Jeremy's personal Facebook was deactivated. I almost felt bad. Almost. Step 2 would be bigger. Mom had built her reputation around being the strong, church-going woman who sacrificed everything for her family. She loved that image. She lived for it. But I had years' worth of her venom stored in my phone: texts where she called me worthless, messages where she said she wished I'd never been born, even voicemails of her screaming. All I had to do was decide when and where to drop them. Tasha leaned across the diner counter one night and asked, "You gonna pull the trigger soon?" I stirred my coffee, thinking. Not yet. Timing's everything. I want them to feel safe for a second, and then lose it all. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just planning revenge anymore. I was enjoying it. I knew that taking down Jeremy was satisfying, but my mother was the real prize. She was the architect of my pain, the one who raised cruelty like it was a family tradition. Jeremy just followed her lead. Mom had spent years building her little empire of lies. To neighbors, she was the caring mother holding the family together. At church, she was the devoted woman of faith. Online, she was the sympathetic single mom, constantly fishing for praise and handouts. I wanted to burn all of that down. The first step was subtle. Using one of my burner accounts, I joined the same Facebook group she was in for our hometown. Every week she posted something: photos of homemade dinners, Bible quotes, passive-aggressive rants about kids these days. It made me sick. I started dropping anonymous comments under her posts. Small things at first. Funny how you act like a saint here, but scream at your daughter in private. Shouldn't you pay your rent before bragging about Sunday service? Nothing that pointed back to me. Just enough to get under her skin, to make her wonder who was watching. Then, I prepared the real blow. I compiled the nastiest texts she'd ever sent me into one long screenshot chain, her telling me I was a failure, saying I'd ruined her life, wishing she'd never had me. I paired it with a caption. "This is the woman some of you look up to. Here's what she says to her own daughter." The night I posted it anonymously in the same community group, I couldn't sleep. My heart pounded as I watched the comments explode. No way. This is horrible. If this is real, she's a monster. I used to respect this woman. Not anymore. By the next morning, she had deleted her Facebook account entirely. I checked her email that night. She had messages from 2 church members, questioning her behavior. One had even said, "You should step back from leadership for a while." For a woman who thrived on appearances, this was the ultimate wound. And I wasn't done. As I scrolled through the chaos I'd caused, Tasha leaned over and whispered, "She's bleeding, Hailey. Now you decide, do you twist the knife, or let her squirm?" I didn't even hesitate. I twist the knife. And I already knew how. If I wanted to end my mother's charade completely, I had to cut her off from the one thing she valued most: control. Growing up, she controlled everything: money, food, even when I could leave the house. She dangled affection like a reward, then yanked it away to remind me who held the power. Now, I wanted her to know what it felt like to lose every ounce of it. The key was her job. She worked part-time at a local medical office, answering phones and scheduling patients. Nothing glamorous, but it gave her just enough stability to keep pretending she was in charge. And I knew exactly how to take it from her. I pulled together a folder of evidence: screenshots of her texts where she wished I was never born, her drunken late-night Facebook posts ranting about idiot coworkers, and the string of applications she had sent to scam jobs online. It painted a picture of someone unstable, unprofessional, and reckless. Then, using another burner account, I emailed the folder directly to her supervisor. The subject line was simple: "Are you aware of your employees' behavior?" I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. A week later, I logged back into her email and saw the aftermath. "We need to discuss your recent conduct. Please come into the office. Until further notice, your position is suspended." I sat back in the motel chair, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across my face. She was unemployed. And because of her already overdue bills, eviction wasn't just a threat anymore, it was a countdown. That night at Millie's, I told Tasha what happened. She whistled low. "Damn, girl. You just took her whole life apart." But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because revenge wasn't just about tearing them down, it was about building myself up, stronger than they ever believed I could be. So, I started putting away more money. I opened a savings account in my own name, something I never had before. Every dollar I tucked away felt like another brick in the wall between me and the people who tried to break me. And the more independent I became, the clearer my final step was: I wasn't just going to leave them ruined. I was going to leave them watching me succeed without them. By the time the leaves began to turn, I had been in Columbus nearly 5 months. The city no longer felt like a stopgap, it was becoming home. I had traded the dingy motel for a small studio apartment above a laundromat. It wasn't much, just a single room with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, but it was mine. My name was on the lease, not my mother's. My paycheck covered the bills, not theirs. That independence felt like oxygen. At Millie's place, I'd become more than just the new girl fumbling orders. Regulars knew my name, slipped me bigger tips, asked how I was doing. Millie herself had started trusting me with closing shifts, handing me the keys at night. For someone who'd been told all her life she was worthless, every little bit of trust felt like a victory. Meanwhile, my family was unraveling. Through Mom's email, I saw the eviction notice had been finalized. The deadline to vacate was 2 weeks away. Jeremy had applied for more payday loans, all denied. Mom had been sending desperate messages to anyone she could think of: friends, distant relatives, even church members, begging for money. Most of them ignored her. Some responded with curt refusals. A few hinted they'd heard rumors about her, and they didn't want to get involved. I had done that. For years, I was the scapegoat, the failure, the embarrassment of the family. Now it was them. They were the ones whispered about, the ones people avoided. But the sweetest part wasn't just watching them fall, it was watching myself rise. I started taking night classes at the community college. Nothing fancy, just bookkeeping and business management basics. I wanted more than a waitress apron. I wanted something sustainable, something that would prove to myself, and to them, that I was capable of building a future they never believed in. One evening, after class, I sat with Tasha on the stoop outside my apartment, sipping gas station wine from paper cups. She nudged me and said, "You know, you already won, right? They're done. You've got a life now." I thought about it. About Mom and Jeremy sitting in that house surrounded by overdue bills and eviction papers. About the silence that replaced their laughter at my expense. And for the first time, I believed her. I had already won. But still, There was one last thing I needed to do, something final, something undeniable, to close this chapter forever. The thought of leaving things where they were, my family broke, desperate, and exposed, was tempting. But deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. If I stopped now, there would always be the chance they'd claw their way back, spin another story, and try to drag me into it again. I needed a final act. A clean cut. Something that made it impossible for them to ever touch me again. The opportunity came in the form of an envelope. One night, while checking Mom's email, I saw a notification, court date scheduled, eviction hearing. They had 7 days before the official hearing. 7 days before everything became public record. That was it. My moment. I decided I would go. Not to help them. Not to stand with them. But to stand against them. Over the next few days, I pulled together everything I had, screenshots of texts, proof of their financial mess, evidence of Jeremy's gambling. I even printed out copies of Mom's Facebook rants, the ones I'd leaked to her church group. It wasn't just pettiness, it was strategy. If they tried to blame me in court, I'd be ready to show exactly who they really were. The night before the hearing, I barely slept. My stomach twisted, my hands shook, but underneath the nerves was a current of fire. For years, I'd been silenced. Tomorrow, I'd finally speak. When the morning came, I dressed simply, black slacks, a clean blouse, my grandmother's necklace. I stood outside the courthouse steps, my folder of evidence tucked under my arm. And then I saw them. Mom and Jeremy, walking up the sidewalk, looking smaller than I had ever seen them. No smug expressions. No mocking laughs. Just exhaustion and panic etched into their faces. For a moment, they froze when they saw me. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just met their eyes, steady and unflinching. This wasn't about tears anymore. This wasn't about begging them to see my worth. This was about showing them they had lost. Completely. The courtroom was small and plain, just a handful of benches, a judge's desk, and the smell of stale coffee lingering in the air. Still, my heart pounded as I sat down, clutching my folder like it was armor. Mom and Jeremy shuffled in behind me. She wore a wrinkled blouse, her hair pulled back too tightly, eyes darting around the room. Jeremy looked worse, sweaty, jittery, like he hadn't slept in days. For the first time in my life, they didn't look like people who had power over me. They looked like what they really were, desperate. The hearing began. The landlord laid out the facts in a clipped, practiced tone: 3 months of unpaid rent, ignored notices, broken promises. Mom tried to interject, spinning excuses, job loss, bad luck, even hinting that I had abandoned them when they needed me. That's when I stood. My voice shook at first, but I steadied it. "Your Honor," I said, holding up my folder, "I'd like to present additional context." The judge nodded. My hands didn't tremble as I passed the documents forward, screenshots of Mom's texts, her rants online, Jeremy's gambling debts, the payday loan rejections. All of it, laid out in black and white. Mom's face drained of color. Jeremy muttered a curse under his breath. "This," I said clearly, "is why I left. And this is why they can't pay. It's not bad luck. It's choices." The judge scanned the papers, frowning. The landlord sat back, satisfied. And my mother who once told me I was nothing but a failure, sat silent, cornered by her own words. When the ruling came, it was swift: eviction granted. They had 10 days to vacate the property. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I simply gathered my things and walked out. Outside, on the courthouse steps, Mom finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse, almost unrecognizable. "How could you do this to us, Hailey?" I stopped, turned, and looked her dead in the eyes. "You did this to yourselves." And with that, I walked away, this time, not running, not hiding, but free. The days after the hearing felt strangely quiet. For years, I had carried the weight of my family's cruelty everywhere I went, like a chain around my neck. Now, with the eviction papers stamped and their last grip on me severed, it felt like I could finally breathe. Word traveled fast back home. Through the same community forums where I had once leaked her messages, I saw the whispers spread: they lost the house. Jeremy's gambling ruined them. She treated her daughter horribly, no wonder she left. Their empire of lies had collapsed. And I didn't even need to lift another finger. Meanwhile, my life was blooming in ways I never thought possible. Millie promoted me to shift supervisor, trusting me to run the diner when she wasn't around. My night classes were going well, and for the first time, I began to picture a future that belonged entirely to me, maybe managing my own place one day, maybe even owning a small cafe. Tasha and I grew closer too. She became more than a friend, she was my anchor, the proof that real loyalty existed. One night, over takeout and cheap wine, she raised a glass and said, "To new lives. And to never letting the past drag us back." I clinked my glass against hers, smiling. To freedom. I still thought about my mom and Jeremy sometimes, not with longing, not with guilt, but with clarity. They had taken enough from me already. Now, all they had left was each other, and I knew that wasn't much. For me, the story didn't end with their downfall. It ended with me standing taller, unbroken, finally carving out the life they swore I'd never have. And in that, I found my revenge wasn't just in their suffering. It was in my survival. It was in my happiness. And it was in proving them wrong every single day.